Morning and welcome to episode 5 of Narrowboat Stories. I am delighted to have Canice here with us today. A couple of weeks ago, Jackie emailed me. Now, she watches our videos and she said that I needed to head over and take a look at your channel, Canice. So thank you so much for being here, because I was blown away by your channel and I'm so excited to hear your story.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Jackie, for bringing us together.
Yeah, she did.
A beautiful moment, especially on Valentine's weekend as well. I mean, a weekend, it's just, it's a beautiful start.
Yeah. Wow. I was so intrigued by your vlogs. I mean, I watched 2 straight off and I was like, so you're living on a boat and you've also got a Dutch barge and you've undertaken this massive project. So let's start from the beginning. So can you tell me about the boat you're on now?
Yeah, so I'm on a 57-foot Liverpool boat, about 1991, I think. I bought it in 2014 as a little adventure. I didn't know anything about boats at the time. I had a friend who had a boat and moved on. And when I was buying the boat, all I wanted was a boat that I didn't need to do anything with, but was in the right price bracket. So I think I spent about 31,000 pounds on this boat. But I have done nothing. The interior is exactly the same as the day I bought it. But everything else mechanical has been rebuilt and fixed. So when I bought this one, I had no intention of doing boat restoration. It really was just my new home, and I was just going to enjoy living on a boat. But very shortly after that, I realized I wanted to, every time I saw a Dutch barge, I was like, that's a beautiful boat. So I spent a lot of time trying to find boats, and I did get close to buying a few boats in the UK, but I backed out due to the fact that they were rotten. But one of my surveyors suggested that if I really wanted to get a bargain, go to Holland directly and buy a boat there. And that's when it gets complicated and very exciting and very, very different.
Okay, well, we can't wait to hear that. I forgot to say right at the beginning that as normal, we will answer questions, but I've just seen Jackie is actually online watching us.
Hi, Jackie.
That's brilliant. Hello, everyone who's watching live. We'll get to the questions at the end, and I'm sure there's going to be loads because this is such an interesting story. So, when you bought your narrowboat, that was 6.5 years ago, wasn't it? Was it 6.5 years ago?
Yeah, July 1st of July 2014 is when I stepped onto the boat.
Brilliant. And whereabouts are you based?
London.
London. Okay. So central London. Central London. Okay, brilliant. So you've lived on board for 6.5 years. You then began this quest to find a Dutch barge that wasn't rotten.
Yeah. So I now own the Dutch barge 2 years.
Right.
And when I bought it, I went. Basically, it was one of those things that I despaired because I couldn't find a cheap boat that was in a good condition. And when I mean good condition, I'm talking about foundations. We're talking about just as long as the steel is in good condition and I don't have to worry about that, then whatever else is wrong with it, I'm not worried about. So I'm now making that decision to take a plunge and restore a boat from scratch, having lived on a boat for 4 years at this stage.
Okay.
So once I went over to Holland, sorry, backtrack a little bit. I was on the internet and I went down some deep holes.
Yeah.
And I started going into individual brokerages in the Netherlands and using Google Translate and various other things to try and work out. And eventually I found this boat. And weirdly, it was the exact same process for finding Georgia. Georgia was at the end of a despairing return from seeing boats that just were not right, and then just changed the parameters of the way I was searching. And then suddenly a boat is revealed. It is all. I think it's true to anybody who's ever bought a boat. You know the boat when you meet it.
We say that too. We say that the moment you step on board, you think, Yes,
Yeah,
this
this is
is
the one. Yeah,
it actually can be completely different to what you thought you was looking for, but you know it
exactly.
as you see it.
Yeah, and it's something about it, and it just goes, well, that ticks all my boxes, and that's perfect. So Georgia was the same. So this boat in Holland was a boat that had been laid up for about 4 years by the time I came to it, unsold,
Right.
and the previous owner had died, and his son was selling it, Rob Cable, who we're now friends,
Yeah.
and it had been, they'd tried to sell it many times, but in Holland there's tons of Dutch barges. Nobody's interested. There's no young people interested in Dutch barges except the weirdos. and and so the problem with this boat is that it was only ever used for sailing and leisure sailing. So it'd never been lived on. It never so it was really basic on the inside, and to be honest, beyond basic. It just all had to be stripped out. So everybody who looked at it just went, it's monumental amount of work.
Mm.
So anyway, I whipped it out and got a survey done it, and the whole thing had been rebottomed. So I've got a 8 mil steel in great condition in the bottom of the boat, and everything else then is 110 years old.
Yeah.
So I say the boat's 110 years old, but it's only really 50% of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but you know, everything needs to be replaced on it. So the very first thing that happened in the survey was they condemned the mast, and one of the aspects of the boat is that I needed it to sail. I've never sailed a boat in my life, but I want to in the future sail a boat.
Yeah.
So when they condemned the mast, we reduced the price, and I ended up getting it for €32,500. When you actually do the exchange rate, that's cheaper than the narrowboat, and it's twice the size.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
A lot
what I learned, and I wouldn't
scared.
have gotten that in the UK.
Sorry, a lot of people, the size of
would
a
scare them,
would scare them. So although it's great value for money, taking on a project of that size can
Yeah,
be quite daunting.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, I was buying. Georgia is, when I say twice the size, the two boats are identical in their length.
Right.
right?
But obviously the Dutch barge is twice the width. But
Yeah.
the issue is that Georgia is fully kitted out, whereas Linda is nothing.
A shell. A shell.
You know, it moves. Yeah, it moves. It's basically a very strange sail away.
Okay. So you go over, you find this boat, you think this is the one, you get the
Yeah.
survey, you move from there. Now, how do you get the boat back? What happens next?
So what happened then was I'm working away and I'm making decent money doing what I do, and because I live on Georgia, my outgoings are very low, so I can just shovel all the money towards restoration. So it's pointed out to me by Rob Cable, the son's owner, why don't you get the mast made in Holland? Because we have
Right.
a carpenter who lives next door to your boat. And this is the thing about that area. The town is Macomb, and Macomb is a traditional boat building town where today they build, you know, multi-million, like we're talking billionaire yachts
Yeah.
in huge hangars and that kind of thing. So all the skills are there. So there were things like a bit of plating that needed to be done after the survey, a bit of work on the engine and fuel tanks and stuff like that, cleaning all of that system out, because I knew I would be crossing the channel eventually. And I just thought, well, all these Dutch people are here on the doorstep. Leave the boat there. I'll travel back and forth and get these things done. But then it was suggested, go and get a new mast. And I went, yeah, that's actually maybe a good idea. So they chopped down a tree and started carving a mast from scratch for me at a price of €6,000 for the wood.
Seems
So
amazing.
then
Yeah.
and that is really, yeah, that's really a good value. And I mean, you could have got a steel one and they would have painted it to look like wood and that would have been fine. But I wanted a traditional look. So that's what we did. I then went in and had a look at the lead counterweight that was on the old mast. And I started whipping that off. And I discovered that it probably had about 4 mil left on the two bolts that were holding the steel, that were holding the lead onto the mast. So it was ready to fall off by the time I got to it. But what then transpired is that I would have to remake the lead counterweight as well. So eventually I got them to sort that out as well. So the mast itself was about €9,000 for a mast that I've yet to use.
Right. But you've got it. You've got it.
But I got it, yeah, and it looks great. It looks absolutely superb.
It looks great.
So get
but it's still in Holland.
So, is it? It's still in Holland?
No, it was at this point.
Yeah, at that point. Holland, So what happened next?
COVID.
No. So we're talking last March. The boat's still in Holland.
So the boat is still in Holland, and I'm literally, everything's going great. I'm just traveling back. I've fallen in love with Mackham. I've fallen in love with everybody in Friesland. So I'm happy enough to just get people to do things as. So I'm in no rush.
Yeah.
And then COVID happens, and I find myself in a lockdown situation, and I can't do anything.
Right.
So I can't go to Holland. So all the work stops. So it's during this period I just tell them, finish up the mast, get everything done, and I've got a plan. And the plan is very simple. Scientists are saying that this is going to be bad, and it's going to be bad now.
Yeah.
As in right as we speak.
Yeah.
So I realized that if I want to survive a second lockdown during this current winter, I need over here so that I can actually have something to do during this particular lockdown. So I hatch a plan to bring the boat over last summer. Okay. So as soon as we were allowed to travel, I was straight over to the Netherlands, sticking on solar panels, putting in a fridge, that kind of jazz, so that we could do the journey going south through the continent to Dunkirk. And that's what we did. And the two of us, my brother and myself, just got on the boat and waved goodbye to everybody in Markham and just started making our way down, having no experience whatsoever.
Really?
No way.
I want to
say, it was a great.
I want to see what the channel was like, really, because I know the channel's very busy, shipping channel.
So what we did is, I don't know whether the COVID was affecting it or not, but we arrived in Dunkirk, and I think it was like the 14th of August or something that we decided that was the date we were going to cross. And simply, the weather was absolutely brilliant, and everybody was coming over and talking about it being like a mill pond. And the day that we decided to go was literally the morning. So we decided to go at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we turned on the news, and the government had announced that by 12 o'clock that evening, we would be in restricted travel.
Right.
So we had no choice at this point of backing out. We just had to go. And it was foggy.
Right.
So we were like, well, okay, we're not going to be able to see a thing. But it'll be calm. Now, my brother Enda has worked in Thailand and on fisheries and all sorts of adventures in his life. So he knew the sea. I'd never been on the sea in my life in a boat. And there's this thing called a swell.
Oh, man.
I'd never come across this in my life. I'd been on a canal. So this swell was nothing. I was terrified. I mean, the boat was doing this. And I suddenly realized, oh, maybe I drop the lee boards, which are the stabilizers, and chuck them into the water, then the thing will stop acting as a pendulum. And of course, instantly the boat suddenly starts behaving itself. And we just motored straight across, and there was no traffic really. We did come across a little bit of a convoy going south of huge container ships. So we just waited for all of them to pass, because they're going 22 knots and I'm practically doing 4.5 knots.
Yeah.
And their bow waves crash into us, and it's all predictable. But the biggest issue with crossing the channel is we technically didn't cross the channel. We went across the North Sea from Dunkirk over to Ramsgate, which is twice the distance of the channel, as in Calais to Dover. And the main reason for doing that journey was just to avoid ferries, which is exactly what happened. But it took 12 hours, and it was really boring.
Really? I would have been terrified. I would have been.
We got over the swell after a while and just realized, oh, okay, well, that's just the sea. Or I just realized. My brother was like, didn't care one bit or the other. But I had to get used to it. And once I got used to it, then it was sort of like, okay, well, here we go. It was exciting when we got there, but I was wrecked.
Well,
I wasn't like jumping at the bit to cross again.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That,
it
but
was a
you've
great
done.
achievement.
Yeah, absolutely,
Mm.
and a great achievement. You know, that must give you real faith in
The boat.
Linda, in the boat,
Oh, yeah.
because you have crossed the channel. You know, you've been in the sea, across the sea, so you know.
Absolutely. And what was the only thing that would be a concern is if you got a 45-year-old 6-cylinder daft diesel
Yeah.
engine. But we had completely rebuilt the fuel system from tanks through all the way through. So we knew that there was no contamination anywhere on the boat, and the engine was absolutely flawless. I mean, smoked all the way across, but it never stopped. It never did anything bizarre, and just got there.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So the rebuild has begun, hasn't it? You know, I've watched the last couple of vlogs, and you've stripped everything out, and you're now in the process of putting stuff back in. Are you? Or is there more to do?
I think when you strip it out, it then uncovers. Like I've seen in the video you watch, you find bits that you then have to refabricate and redo from inside, because that wood paneling's good at hiding stuff. It's good at hiding stuff.
So, I mean, when we arrived, everything was great. We got into London and we parked up the boat. And then about maybe a month later, I started pulling panels off and checking the bilge. And there was seawater in the bilge. And the reason there was seawater in the bilge, because I was like, where the hell did that come from? Because it was at the back of the boat, was because there was an inlet that had been hidden, covered by a wooden panel that everybody had forgotten about.
Right.
And I was told by one of the skippers who sailed Linda with Chris Cable, the previous owner, years ago, they used to always wonder where the seawater came from.
Ah.
And there it is.
And when I pulled the panel off, there's a hole in the side of the boat. So the seawater had been bashing in and going into the hole. So yeah, you find all these little things. And what I've really enjoyed about it is, because it's 110 years old all around the side, there's 110 years worth of bumps in it.
Yeah.
And I discovered that what they did somewhere, I would suspect around the 1980s, is they went with filler and sculpted the outside of the boat to make it nice and smooth and get rid of all the bumps. And so when I discovered there was load of filler, my instant reaction was, what have I got? But it's all been tested, so it's absolutely fine. But then I realize, as I'm on the inside looking at literally acne going down the side of it, and you realize that that's what it's going to look like when you remove all the filler and the paint. It'll have and what I want to do is retain that, so that when people look at the boat, they're going to see all the bumps and the marks and everything along the outside.
Yeah. Excellent. Such a huge undertaking. I watched your videos like this when you were stripping everything down. I was like, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do there. How long have you got a time scale, or is this going to be a work in progress for ages?
I'm making this up as I go along.
Right.
And it's simply because I can't. I mean, what nobody knows really what's going on. So in terms of the pandemic, so there's no point making any plans. So what I do is I do something, and then I finish that, and then I look around and I go, well, I might as well do that. So what I'm trying to do is trying to get ahead, so that when things come back to normal, it'll be shopping, putting stuff in.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do now is all those jobs. I mean, if you watch the earlier videos, the entire interior of the boat has been hand scraped with the chisel to remove all the tar that was originally painted onto it 110 years ago. And that took months.
Right.
So, and that is now done. And it's, if you were to go back and start again, you would just, it's like painting the fourth bridge. It would just, and what you don't think about is, you don't think about the end result. You just start and you just keep going. And once you don't think about where or targets or where you're going to, you just have to get on with the next job. So you just keep doing it. And then eventually it all sort of gets done. But what's interesting now is I'm starting to get to a point where I'm slowly starting to run out of those kind of jobs. Not really. I mean, I can always figure out, I mean, I can tackle the engine room and start scraping the interior of that. But we're at a point where we could start talking about putting water tanks in and start improving the boat. So it's going to start getting more interesting for that reason, because everything we do now is an improvement rather than a stripping out of the boat. But yeah, there is no plan. It'll just be whatever can be done next.
Whatever.
And it could go on for years.
Oh, I tell you, I'm invested in your journey. I cannot wait, to see the progress as you make it. And I'll put the link to your channel in the description as well. And I urge everybody to check them out, because they're brilliant.
I would like to. Oh, can I just throw in, if you do check sort of the recent episodes and you wonder why I'm talking to tools, and they all have personalities. Yeah. It's simply lockdown. I haven't seen anyone for donkey's years now at this stage, it feels like. So I've just made up characters for all the equipment that I'm using, and I've now come up with stupid storylines, and people are following simply because they want to know what Stilson's going to do next.
And Captain.
The captain.
Yeah, and the sea captain, who's maybe psychopathic. We're not entirely sure at this stage, but he does have a gun, and he's drunk, and he's missing a leg. So there's this sideline going on in the videos, because how do you get people to watch paint drying?
Yeah, well, I absolutely love it. I love watching them as well. Your characters are fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What would you say that you're not looking forward to tackling on Linda? It's such a big project. Is there any of it that you're like, oh, that's going to be tough, or are you just taking that approach of the next day, seeing what that brings?
I do sometimes think about this, because when it's the middle of winter, the boat's freezing and you're scraping crap off the inside of the boat, and you can't imagine any job worse than this. And yet I just always get this sense of satisfaction for some reason, because it's mine, because it's my project, I'm doing it the way I want it, etc. I don't ever look at it as a chore. When I'm working, sometimes putting the filthy clothes on to go in and do the work is the bit that's the bit I hate. But once I'm actually working, then I'm fine. I think the biggest issue going forward is I now have to get rid of all the outlets. So I have a sea toilet with two outlets under the water line. I have a pump, which is irrelevant, that is under the water line, to pump water from the canal up onto deck. I don't need that. And things like that I need to take out and put cap off. And once I do that, then I get a lot of junk out of the boat. So I now have to find somewhere a dry dock that we can use just for the day, for somebody to come in and just cap everything off and do that. So it's not really the thing I'm not looking for. It's the effort that's going to be put in to try and find somewhere that will do that. Right. And then organizing somebody to come in, because that's probably where my Achilles heel is getting on the phone and going, I need this to be done, because I find that boring. Yeah. The actual work, not a problem, but the organization of other people to get things done is it's also something I do. It's sort of easy when you have definitely a pony to work from. So on Georgia, I'm sitting in a boat that is entirely galvanized. So I went up to Debdale Wharf in just beside Foxton Locks, and they just whipped it out, stripped everything off it down to bare metal, and then sprayed it all with zinc, and then put 2-pack epoxy. So this boat doesn't need to come out of the water again for at least 10 years. Yeah. And that was fine. I picked up the phone and went, hey, I see you sell this. Can I have that, please? Brilliant. They just did everything. Yeah. But because now I have to sort of be a bit more judicious about how I spend money and the things that I do. So I have to sort of now do a lot more time researching and investigating. And that's the bit I'm not looking forward to. Because I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I don't know how easy it is as well to pull one of those out of the water, or where
this is the point, yeah.
Yeah, you got to then trace around. Well, it's a Dutch barge, it's this side. Can you get it out of the water? I don't know. Narrowboat people can do that. Or...
Yeah.
It will be. I mean, it's not too bad because I'm in London, but yeah, because there's loads of wide beams here, so there's
Yeah.
plenty
Same.
of places to do it. It's just finding that and organizing a slot and just getting. I just haven't even started it.
Somebody that's good and recommended, because obviously you want
Exactly.
a good job. Really,
Yeah.
it's got to be a good job. If you're going to the trouble of getting out of the water, it's got to be done right.
Oh,
yeah.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, there's so much to talk about, you know, for Dutch Barge Linda in itself, just such an epic project. But I thought we'd head over to the questions, if that's okay. See if anyone's got any questions for us.
I did see one up the top there. Someone said, I think it was Steve. Was it Steve? Was it that one?
Steve, hold on 1 second. Steve says, it's followed you from the start. Great story from Narrowboat. Precious.
Said,
thank you, Steve.
That one.
This is Steve again. This is a good question. Will you be selling your Narrowboat when Linda is finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the problem is when is Linda going to be finished? So the cutoff point is. So what I would like to, in my mind, we get to a point where we can move on to Linda. Once you can move on to Linda at a basic level, so even if the interior is not decorated, but there's a shower and there's the bits that I need, the basics, then we will be able to sell Georgia. And once you do that, then you end up with a massive amount of cash.
Yeah.
And my idea is if we get there, then we can electrify Linda.
Right.
And that is the idea. And what I mean by electrify Linda is ring up, Fisher, I can't remember the name of the companies, and just say, hi, I've got this diesel engine. It's 80 horsepower. Give me a system that replaces it. And then it's electric drive.
Well,
no more.
Yeah, that would be fascinating.
Because the issue is because I do have to consider this. I mean, how much money am I going to spend on the diesel engine to stop it from smoking and all of that? And does it need a rebuild? And at what point do you just decide, well, there's no point? Because, you could spend £6,000, £8,000 doing a rebuild on a diesel engine, or you could take that off the overall price of an electric system, which is going to be vastly more expensive than that. But but with selling of Georgia, that would facilitate that, I would hope.
Yeah.
But you never know.
Fascinating. So Louise from Narrowboat, changing pace. I think Dave will be totally gutted to have missed this live story. Well, he can catch up, Louise. So he'll have to check the rerun. Mr. Captain John followed Canice all through his journey vlog. Brilliant presentation. Morning to Ben. Charlie, good morning. A Dutch matchstick afloat. Well, also in Holland, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
I think Dutch matchstick. I think they're in Holland, and also
hi. These are all comments these are all people I recall from the comments.
If a DAF motor doesn't smoke, there's something wrong with it. So there we go.
Now this is the really interesting thing people say. You're absolutely right. The two things I want to say is I reply to comments on the thing because people give me so much encouragement and also so much information about stuff I didn't know, and also the comments steer me. So in the last episode, I started using Outerall, which is an oil for the bilge to preserve the steel, and that was from a comment. I was looking for that kind of product, but I couldn't find it. But the second thing is a DAF engine. If you have one in Holland, and they all smoke because that's what everybody says about the DAF engine. But I contend that's because all DAF engines are 45 years old. So they all smoke because they're 45 years old, and they can be rebuilt to be not smoking. But but they're utterly reliable. But they are very, very, very smoky traditionally. And every time you see one, you can hear the sound of a DAF, and you can see the smoke, and you just know you're dealing with a DAF.
Just want to say good morning to Melanie as well. She's put very interesting. Another YouTube channel to watch. So this is that's excellent.
Thank you.
also says, do you know the rough price of electrifying Linda? Any ideas?
As the engine would be, you can buy it off the shelf. You can buy engines from America, 20,000 pounds ish. It really, the budget, it's not cheap. I mean, some of the so this Elco is a company in America. They produce a just a switch. You literally, it'll fit onto your original engine mounts, and that's sort of around $20,000, and that would be probably more with import taxes and etc. But there's loads of companies in Britain that will do DC, and then so you can have 48 volt, you can have 288 volt, you can have 360 volt, high voltage jobs. But whatever you decide, it's going to just add cost. You're probably going to have to go diesel electric, so you're going to have a diesel generator, an enormous battery bank. I'll have it connected to solar panels. So if you're continuous cruising, 2 weeks of charging up and then a dash and then 2 weeks of charging up would be an option. But the point is, you're forever. It is, you can spend probably 50, 60, 100,000 pounds on a system if you wanted to, or you try and do it in a budget way. So some people are making their own, and that's hugely cost effective. And yeah, why not? And maybe we might go down that route. But again, because I hate being on the telephone, it'd be just lovely just to pick up and go, hi, just send me the boxes, please. Thanks. Here's my money.
It's the budget, make it work.
Right, exactly. But you are talking around 20,000, maybe a little bit lower, but you can certainly go way, way, way above that, because you can have a motor that's 100 kilowatts, which is effectively 100 horsepower, and not a problem. And they'll just hook it up to a DC. You can basically, like a train, diesel electric train. You could just do the exact same thing. And the other thing about a boat is you can fill it with batteries, and you can spend an infinite amount of money with batteries because you're not worried about weight. So again, it depends on what you need and what you want to do. But the boat is quite heavy, so you're going to need a motor that has a bit of oomph. So really the motor is the key, and then it's how you're going to use it. Are you going to use it with diesel, or are you going to use it with solar and batteries, and then it's just spec it up, really.
Yeah, fascinating. So Dutch Matchstick afloat, yes, they're in the Netherlands. So we're on the move. I've said that they followed your channels since we just passed the Grove near Croxley. So we're on the move. We're on a wide beam. I don't know if you've seen their channel.
No, we're on the move. I'm aware of them. Yeah,
that's a good
Croxley? One. Who's moved since they've been in Croxley, or I've been in?
Yeah, ever since we just passed the Grove near Croxley. So I think they were passing. They might have passed you. I think.
Oh, I see. Right.
What they're saying. I think. Let's have a look. Steve, I've talked to you before about going back to Ireland. Do you have a timescale for that? So is that something that you're planning to do?
And so the idea is very simply, Ireland has an incredible waterway system. They don't do narrow gauge because when they built the canal system, the people were cheap and land was cheap. So they just built them wide. So the smallest locks are 60 feet long and 4 meters wide, or 3.9 meters wide. 3.9 meters wide. What am I using the two different? But it's 3.9 meters wide. That's all I know. So the issue with that is I bought Linda to make sure it fits into that size lock, so that I'm future-proofed if I ever decide to take it to Ireland. But have I got a time scale? Not really. I mean, the idea is in Ireland you can sail along the canals, and then there's the River Shannon, and then there's these enormous inland seas, Lough Ree and Lough Derg, which are huge, massive lakes. And whack the sails up, and off you go, and you're sailing in the lake. So the boat is really ideal for Ireland, whereas it's sort of quite limited in the UK because you can only go wide beam canals. But having said that, the distance you travel in the UK is much longer. So like the Kenneth and Avon would be, whatever, 100 and something miles, which you're not going to get. You will get big distances like that in Ireland, but obviously UK is just bigger. But you have more variety of things you can do with a boat in Ireland. So it's just a case of get the boat ready once we're all happy, but then I might decide I don't want to leave. So
yeah, who knows? But I mean, if anything, what we've learned over this last year of you know, pandemic and lockdown, we don't know what's around the corner. So sometimes just seeing how it comes is a good thing.
The thing to bear in mind, I moved here in 2003, so I'm here a long time, and I've no intention of, I have no plans to leave the UK. I'm thoroughly enjoying myself here.
Well,
so,
that is
you know, I mean, the opportunities that I've had, I mean, you grow up and you think, oh, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And I did the things generally that I'm going to do with my life, but I had no comprehension that I was going to be a boat guy.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
With a beard.
I love to hear that, because that's one of the things about Narrowboat Stories that I find fascinating. There are some people that have always known and always wanted to be on a boat, but like us, we never saw that coming. You know, we never saw it coming. There was no big plan to be here on a boat, and that's what I find fascinating, is how we end up here, you know, living on boats or owning boats, and how our lives are then shaped by the way we live on a boat. So
that's an interesting comment.
Which one? This one. So
that one's interesting.
So Mark says, it's been interesting to read recently about VW's MEB, Modular Electric Drive Toolkit platform, and its use on boats. I didn't understand any of that.
So I'm going to run up with a with an option.
Yeah. So this is what's happening in when see, if I had a tunnel and I knew that in 2 years' time we're going to go for an electric conversion, and I start talking about what I want, in 2 years' time, it's totally irrelevant. And that's the thing, is it's the solar will be putting on will have a higher efficiency. The batteries will have a higher density. You'll have completely different motors, but the big issue with all of these electrical things is the software that comes with the control. I mean, you just have a switch that switches polarity, and then you just have the thing reverse and have a basic system like that. But reality is the computer, what a computer can do with a solar panel and a set of batteries and get that powered unit is changing by the minute. If you buy an electric car, they improve the car with every update, unlike a petrol car, which doesn't improve. And that's the reality. Both things you could put in 2 years, and it's a bit like computers. Your system will go out at auto. I mean, it'll just continue to do what it's doing, but the advances are so accelerated right at this moment in time. We might be talking about something completely different.
I
think that's going to be. I think, especially as was it Jaguar Land Rover said they're going to be all electric from 2025. So
that's right. Yeah.
Development between now and then is obviously going to be massive.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing. Apparently, hand car booming simply because everybody knows it's over. So nobody wants to buy a new petrol car, so they're just waiting until the electric cars become affordable.
And they'll become very efficient. I think they'll become very efficient. I think that's the technology. That's the bit. That's the important bit. Is the efficiency of the charging. Efficiency.
Absolutely, yeah.
And how long they last. Yeah.
And the only thing is, in Georgia, I've got a 3-cylinder Barrett Shire, built like a tank, problems whatsoever. I just hate the sound of it. I actually like the sound of a 6-cylinder diesel engine, but I prefer the sound of nothing. So I'm sort of like, I know it's going to go. It will go because it has to go. But do like the sound of silence, and that's the idea of sailing. So the sail is solar powered anyway, because that's how the wind comes from. So it's energy, and then I power for the batteries to provide the push when it's needed. Although sailing on the canal will be very time consuming.
Yeah.
Nutshell is hydraulic driven. Our boat's not hydraulic driven. And I do how hard it would be to put an electric motor on the hydraulics, because obviously it would just drive the hydraulics rather than the propeller. The engine just drives the pump. A very small pump. It's tiny.
Exactly,
it's not very big. Yeah, and it's very quiet. No gear, don't get any gear clunk or anything. It's so I wonder how whether a hydraulic and electric motor will be an easy swap.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is when we get to a point where I've got a big pile of cash in the bank account ready to burn, it's going to be very exciting to see what is the system and what we can do. And the other thing about it is you can scale it up. Let's say you just power in your batteries, you just buy more batteries, you get more solar panels. So these things can all be added to, as long as you have the basic system, which is the motor. As long as the motor is fine, and then everything else can be built up afterwards.
Yeah. Got a great question here. So David from Narrowboat GYR, long time no see. Last time we were boating up M25. The vlogs regarding Linda. How many hours are you putting in the weekly on the renovation? How long do you?
So at the moment, life extremely difficult for myself. So what I go and work in the early part of the week, as much as I just keep doing that, and we're putting in 8 hours a day. So like, I mean, I would stop for lunch and then come back out and I'd go into the evening. So sometimes when you're watching the vlog, you'll see those right that suddenly not right but I'm in a time lapse or something like that. But what happens then is I have created all of this footage, which is hours of footage, and then I'm reducing it down to 15 minutes. That's a day. So that's a day of editing over the week that I'm sort of building this thing up. And then I discover that I'm not happy with it because I think it's boring. So then I go and shoot a load of nonsense to go with it. And then that's added more time. And then I decide it's still not right. So then I type caption everything with all my captions, taking the piss out of myself all the way through. And it's full time. So I don't know, when we come out of lockdown, I'll be in a sort of I'll have less time because I'll have to go and earn some money.
And live a life. Live a life as well. I've got
live a life, yes, absolutely.
I say the same, don't I? What am I going to do when we come out of lockdown? I've got so many projects on the go. I've got no time for living a life. So Sue says that she'd recommend you talking to Jono from Victron. So that's
yes. So is that Jono, as in Jono who did the vlog? No longer vlog.
Yeah.
Jono is a separate Jono.
No, same guy. Same Jono, but I think he works for Victron now.
He works for Victron now.
It's gone. Okay, yeah. Yes, no, absolutely. Because because obviously there'll be, so if you go on to the people who propulsion, they will have their own system, because that 60 volts AC, which is obviously, fry a human if you get it wrong. But the in-house will have to be a separate system.
Yeah. Interesting.
So so Vic, as far as I'm concerned, blue boxes all the way, because that's all I buy is blue boxes, and I'll continue with Victron because I've had it for 6.5 years and I've never had a problem with it. It's the reliability that I like.
Excellent. So Louise is just confirmed editing does take so long. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Editing is not a quick process.
It also is a problem when you're an idiot. So what I do is I film stuff, but I don't delete the rubbish that I know is rubbish.
Yeah.
So and then because I'm also using the most basic editing software and the most basic equipment. It's that if I went and got myself a proper laptop, then I would edit a lot quicker. But I'm still figuring it out, and it takes time because I'm an idiot.
Well,
because I make work for myself.
It takes time. However, I mean, we've been doing it for like 3.5 years, and I'm still not.
I don't do any. And I leave it all to Lisa. Lisa's always got.
That sounds like a lovely life.
Yeah, always. It takes bloody hours. Anyway, talking, you are so busy. You've got a lot to do. We're going to have to let you go. And thank you so much for today. We really appreciate it. It's been fascinating. And we would love to have you back for an update sometime, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. And I just want to thought. I ran out of water this morning.
Right.
I haven't had a shower, and you didn't know that, and now you do.
We don't. But does that mean you haven't had a cup of tea?
No, I last night I realized that we were running out of water, so I have a bottle of water. So literally, as soon as we're done, I'm in the boat and I'm off to collect water.
You go.
And
Go
I'll
on.
video it. It'll be in the next episode.
Oh, we'll look out for it. Thank you so much for your time, and we really look forward to talking to you again soon.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing this. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
The beard.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Bye.
See ya.